Hi everyone. So my talk is about building your own tools, and I'm hoping to give a little bit of inspiration and maybe some frameworks to keep in mind when you're building tools for yourself, because it can make you more productive. It's really nice to own the things that you use, and it's cool to build cool things too. I'm going to start off by talking about Google Photos. This is my dog. So Google Photos is probably the most important piece of software that I have, and I think the photos that I have on it might be the most important thing that I own. I have over 7,000 photos and videos from over the years. It's how I remembered the name of the beer that I liked. It's how I get diagrams onto my computer or drawings. It's how I remember what I got people for Christmas. It's really a terrible to-do list for me. And I love this memories feature that it has, where it says, this is what you were doing on this day 2 or 3 years ago. And when I look at those and I think, I cherish those so much, and I think, why am I trusting Google with this? Because Google has just a terrible track record of axing things that people like, and deleting people's accounts with no warning. And this was only a couple of weeks ago. Just a load of people lost their Google Drive data. So I wanted to back up my Google Photos, and I just Googled Google Photos unofficial API, because again, I don't really like GCP. So I got this playwright script, and it was on GitHub, and it's great. It took a couple of hours to download everything, but at least they were on my computer. So I provisioned an S3 bucket with the cheapest tier for AWS storage. It's called Glacier Archive, and for all it was 80 gigabytes of stuff I had. It's only 30-something cents a month, so it's really cheap. And I just made this script that goes through everything that's downloaded. It uploads them to S3, and it deletes them locally, just so if I have to restart the script, and it did take a couple of hours to upload them all. So whenever they're deleting locally, I know that, okay, if a photo's on my computer, that means it definitely hasn't been uploaded yet. And this gave me a snapshot of all the photos that I ever took with Google Photos up until December 2023. But I wanted to update this every week, because I'm adding 20 or 30 photos. So I just made this launch agent, and once a week, it looks at this text file whenever I open my computer, and it says the text file is the last time it was updated on. And if that was more than a week ago, it backs up the latest photos and sends me an email of the last photo that it backed up, just so I can see if it looks okay. And then it updates the last backup date file. So when I open my computer tomorrow or the next day, it will say, okay, it was backed up yesterday, it's fine. And that made me think, what other tools am I just putting way too much trust in? I've been using OneNote for years, just because it's what I started using, and I needed a reason to change. So it uses some weird proprietary file type, and it could get corrupted, and I don't really trust it. And then GitHub, if GitHub deleted all of my stuff, that would be really annoying and bad. But at least OneNote, it's easy to get your stuff out of OneNote. It's kind of a solved problem already, and just naturally GitHub's pretty easy to get your stuff out of. But apart from editing the tools that you use, or making little tools yourself to make software more trustworthy, there's other things that programmers can do to the tools that we use every day. We can rewrite versions, even simple versions of really slow programs. We can make offline versions of things that are only online. We can edit user interfaces that are really bad. And even if some websites like YouTube and Twitter have these dark patterns in them that make them quite addictive, and we can patch them and make them less addictive, because the web is a really patchable platform, and it's just JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Or we can even be inventors as programmers. That's really what we do every day. Linus Lee, his website's called BelfastJS.com. He's like basically an inventor. He has this tool called Monocle that he made, and he's made loads more. And it's like a search engine that's indexed all of his tweets, his browser history, his Gmail, and it basically means when he wants to search for something that he ever did digitally, he can find it really easily. And I've got my own like running list of things that I'm trying to build and have built, and it's always a work in progress, but it feels really fulfilling when I get something to work. But I think there's like a certain attitude that you have to have if you want to build your own tools that is quite different from whenever you're making like production software for loads of customers. So I have these strategies that I like to follow. The first one is to just leave loads of stuff out. Or always remember Yagni, you ain't gonna need it. So maybe you can leave out really complicated back-end architectures, and instead maybe you could just host something locally. Maybe you could host that locally, just with localhost. If you're using a tool yourself and you're a programmer, you might need a really nice, slick user interface because they're really, really difficult to make. Maybe you could even just use CLI. And in general, I think for me, when I'm building my own tools, I like to prefer basic options. Like instead of a database, just because it's only for me, I like to use a JSON file. Instead of TypeScript, which I like, I just prefer JavaScript because I'm more concerned about getting something done really quickly. And instead of fancy authentication, I could use simple HTTP authentication, or even better, no authentication at all. And really just try and prototype stuff. Like this was the first personal computer, the Apple I, and it was really just a prototype. I think a nice framework to think about when it comes to prototyping things is to try and imagine what the bad version of something would look like. Rach Smith uses this framework when she's writing, and I think it applies to building things really well too. So the first motorbike was, I think it was like a bad version of it. It actually was so bad that it killed the inventor's son, but it was faster than walking. And within 10 years, motorbikes looked normal, like they looked like the dude's dead. They're really like sturdy, and we could only get this because someone built the bad version first. Yeah, there's some like platforms that you can write your programs on that I think lend themselves really well to prototyping that I wouldn't use for something that's actually customer facing. The first one is menu bar apps. Xbars on macOS, but you can use things for Linux and Windows just to have like the launch tray, like things you can click to get scripts to run. You can write scripts in any language, and you can have them run at startup, run in the background, run in the schedule, and it's a really easy way to basically make your scripts easy to find. Electron is a really nice way. I love making tools with Electron because if you have ever built a website, you already know how to build something with Electron. I built my own version of Toggle with Electron because I just thought Toggle was really complicated. And I built this ChatGPT wrapper with Electron. It basically lets you swap out different prompts really quickly. I built it before custom instructions were out, so it's a little bit redundant now, but I still like having desktop apps instead of websites sometimes. And you can make your own style sheets for Electron apps and for really any website. User CSS is a browser extension that lets you apply your own styles to any website. So I use Obsidian, the note-taking app. I'm weird, I use like OneNote and Obsidian. But I like Obsidian, but I don't like the way it's so wide. It's kind of, I just don't like that. So I just made my own CSS file that shortens the line lengths. And you can do this with any website. And Rach Smith has an article where she talks about how she used her own CSS to get rid of YouTube Shorts, which is like the most addictive part of YouTube. Pretty much anything that you do on the internet, any like clicking or typing, can be automated. If you run npx playwright codegen and then a URL, it will open up a browser, and if you click around, it will record what you're doing as code. So you don't even need to write the code. My friend Owen, he wanted to do a theory test for his driving license, and he wanted a cancellation appointment because there was long waiting times. So instead of like trying to log in every day or like type through all the things that he needs to click through to see if there's a cancellation, he automated it, and that way he was able to run it like many times an hour, and he got like the first cancellation that was possible. And like a browser extension is like maybe the classic way to edit the web for yourself. Jeffrey Litt, this is just one that I found. He didn't like this sidebar on Twitter, so he made his own sidebar that he put in there, and it just lets him search his own tweets because he uses Twitter as like his own little note-taking app. And I like this tool because it's probably not a lot of use for most people, but it was really just for himself. Just some more like building blocks that I think are nice if you are making your own tools. If you want to include an LLM, llama.c++ is like the easiest way to run your someone else's large language model locally, and Llama specifically is really easy to use. If you want to like provision anything with AWS, I really like the serverless framework. It's really easy to use. If you want to schedule something, use cron jobs. If you want a keyboard macro, use AutoHotkey. You can programmatically use Git. Like you can make your scripts use Git if you want to version stuff. SQLite is like the easiest, hackiest way to use a database. And I really like NodeMailer for kind of getting your own tools to communicate with you. Like you can send yourself emails with your own tools. AWS SES is also really easy to use if you want to send yourself emails like when your computer is not on. Or you can let somebody else write all the code. Maggie Appleton talks about this idea of folk interfaces or end user programming, which is when you use something that wasn't meant to be used as like a programming language or a programming tool to build things. My friend Michael has this website he maintains for DJs, and all of this content is actually getting pulled in from a Google Sheets document. Like he's calling Google Sheets directly from his front end. So that's basically his database. And my friend Luciano, he needed a website for inviting people to his wedding, where there was invite codes and they needed to be authenticated. And he used Airtable as his backend, and he wrote about it in this article, and he drew this diagram to show the architecture. I've seen people use like a public-facing Notion document instead of a website, and I think it works quite nicely. And just some other tools that other people have used to that aren't really programming. You can use Slack bots to like get your tools to send you Slack messages. You can use Trello, because Trello is an API, and you can use it as a sort of application state for your scripts. And Zapier can be used as a no-code job runner. So yeah, build your own tools because they make your own workflows more convenient. You get to build things around your workflows instead of making your workflows around other people's tools. And you also get to own your own tools. So Google is never going to depreciate something that you made yourself. And you also get to build cool things, and you learn along the way. And even though I talked about like trying to avoid over-engineering things, I think if you do want to learn like new technologies, then the best way to learn anything is to try and build something that's actually useful for yourself, that you're motivated to build. Thanks for listening.